and protect. I think there is a potential for really long and drawn-out games. But since both players are also using some of those really offensive Pokemon, it could also go in a completely different direction. So, tough one to call. It looks like Jonathan wants to take things slow, leading off with a Dondozo right away.
Get your compasses out, trainers. Let's see which direction this one goes in. Yes, Big Fish. Paired with the Sneasler there for Jonathan, Bascalibur and Volcarona for Joanne. So getting the option on Joanne's Volcarona there to maybe start setting up with some Quiver Dances is threatened down by big Wave Crashes that could be coming out from Dondozo. But crucially, Wave Crash is going to be slowly but surely reducing the HP bar of that Pokemon, whereas Joanne's own has Liquidation instead.
Yeah, one thing that is interesting about this Volcarona coming out of Joanne is, well, it carries that covered cloak, so Fake Out will not be able to get the flinch here. Also, it means that Direct Claw will not be able to get any special conditions on this Pokemon,
yes.
but it also has the combination of Quiver Dance and Rage Powder.
And it certainly does, redirecting attacks away from it. But right now, Bascalibur, just time to get into the Halloween spirit. The Terra Ghost getting around the Fake Out there, immune to normal type moves. That is Volcarona having its time at the disco, going for that Quiver Dance there, getting nice and set up, even in the face of an unaware Dondozo.
And this might be time to attack into that Sneasler, but no, instead, Joanne decides to go after that Dondozo with a big Scale Shot.
Yeah, Scale Shot here will be reducing the defense of the Bascalibur, but boosting up the speed ultimately. And it looks like that's going to be a 5-turn hit into the Dondozo. It might be unaware of a stat boost, but if you're hitting multiple times on just a single turn, that's a really good way of whittling down its HP.
And there is the Yawn, which will slow down the battle just as we expected. Now hitting into that Volcarona, and even though, well, Volcarona has the boosts, you cannot really use them against the Dondozo because of unaware, but it also means that, yeah, the next turn Volcarona would go to sleep, so might have to switch out, but the both Pokemon that Joanne has chosen here, the Bascalibur with Terra Ghost and that Volcarona holding that covered cloak, actually they pair up really nicely against that Sneasler, really limiting the options for Jonathan right here. I mean, Jonathan could try and go for a Direct Claw into the Volcarona, but if it decides to stay in, then you might get burnt. I mean, you cannot accidentally get like poison on it, so it cannot fall asleep, so that's not an option because of the covered cloak. But yeah, John decides that switching out is his best way.
Switching out into the Rillaboom, even though it could be a Dire Claw heading into that very slot, that would be super effective against this Drum Soloist. Bascalibur will be scouting out for this turn. It doesn't want to make those boosts go for naught, especially with reduced defense. And a good call too, because Dire Claw targeting into that slot could well have caused a status condition there. But now that slot is pinned for Joanne. Another Yawn coming into the Rillaboom, so would have to switch that Pokemon out as well if it doesn't want it to go to sleep. All the while, Dondozo able to recover all the more thanks to the grassy terrain as well as the leftovers.
Yeah, Scale Shot was able to do a ton of damage to that Dondozo, but now that Jonathan has established this Yawn loop, I like to call it, it is very tough to break out of it because, well, it means that Joanne would have to take the sleep on one of his Pokemon, and if he just keeps on switching, well, that Dondozo is happy about that as well because it just means that it will recover turn after turn after turn. So, yeah, nice play there by Jonathan, and John really has to think about, okay, can I afford my Rillaboom to go to sleep? But he says no, and switches it out.
No, the revolving door continues. Can you imagine a Yawn coming out of Dondozo? Huge jaws gaping wide for that Yawn there. But now it's time to get sparkly. It's time to terrastalize. And the target of the terrastalization, the Dondozo. It's now going to be that poison typing, reducing the damage significantly from any grass type moves, even though now Joanna switched out that Rillaboom here. So that Terra option is spent on both sides of the field. Icicle Spear so nice into the Sneasler. We're not even, we might come down to that 4 hits, but the 5, it looks like probably not. Sneasler down through that Focus Sash. That is the strength of running a multi-strike move and the loaded dice ensuring that it hits at least 4 times there. So that's one key piece of the puzzle already out, but now Bascalibur is going to be treated to this bitter medicine of the Yawn.
Yeah, really nicely showing off here, Joanne, is why that Bascalibur was able to carry him into the top cut, into the top 16. First of all, he went for the Scale Shot, and I was thinking, maybe you want a Scale Shot into the Sneasler to get the knockout through the Focus Sash, but no. Instead, he decides to go for that Scale Shot into the Dondozo just to do damage to another Pokemon, but then with the speed boost from Scale Shot, now outspeeding the Sneasler, and Icicle Spear is enough to get the knockout here with the 5 hits, so really goes to show how well you can use that Pokemon. And, well, now Rillaboom comes in for Jonathan, but once again, it doesn't really have any targets for its fake outs.
Yeah, certainly doesn't, because it could be burned by that Volcarona with its Flame Body ability, and with the Batcalibur threatening super effective Ice-type damage right into that slot as well. The Rillaboom is certainly getting a chilly reception.
So, well, why is Rillaboom then on the field there at all? Maybe Jonathan wants to call a switch here by Joan and just go for an offensive Woodhammer, I have to assume.
Well, it's just going to be the Grassy Glide priority into the freshly switched in Rillaboom. As Heat Wave, now it's time to do some more damage. Super effective into Jonathan's Rillaboom, taking it better thanks to its Assault Vest, bolstering special defense. Wave Crash, not enough for the one-hit knockout. It's a calculation that Joan may well be aware of there. Volcarona able to hang on and get that tiny bit of recovery.
Yeah, this was finally the turn where Dondozo on Jonathan's side was like, okay, I've got it. I'm really sleepy. I've been yawning around for a bit, but now it's time to go in and go for that damage. But with just a little bit of health remaining on that Volcarona, maybe that Grassy Glide, if it was targeted into the Volcarona, maybe that would have been enough. But well, it's
not sure.
Tough call there. But now it means that, yeah, well, some more grassy terrain recovery, and now finally that loop is broken for Joan's side, and well, that Volcarona is still looking really powerful there with those Heat Waves.
Yeah, it really is. Heat Wave spread type move when you can attack both opponents on the other side of the field. That's always a good thing. But Protect coming out from Dondozo right now just wants to get even more recovery thanks to its snacker that it's holding, as well as the Meadow on the field. And the fake out directed into the freshly switched in Ghost type, that Dragapult there. And it's going to have to eat up this Heat Wave from Volcarona. It's dishing out as much damage as it can before it goes down. Is there going to be a burn here on the Dragapult? No, there isn't. Thankfully not.
Yeah, I think so far the battle went really well for Joan, but this turn was really nice for Jonathan, because now he was able to establish Dragapult, his final Pokemon, as one of the fastest Pokemon on the field. Well, the fastest, well, we don't know what Joan has in the back, but now it is the time to go for some big damage over on Jonathan's side. He was able to scare out that Baxcalibur, which had the boosted speed, which, depending on how they're trained, might not be faster than the Dragapult, but it's good to get the confirmation here. And now with Dragapult and with its signature move, Dragon Darts, will definitely get a KO this turn.
Yeah, certainly will. Rage Powder would redirect both into the Volcarona, but it's on such low health that the other then just goes right into the Rillaboom thanks to the smart targeting on that move.
Actually, with that Rage Powder, it means that we will only see one of the darts, only one of the Dreepies coming out there.
Only one Dreepy. Okay, well, the Woodhammer is still going to be huge damage into the Dragapult there. Smart targeting, so much for that. Certain conditions, if it was into a Fairy type on the other side, for example, then it would go into both Pokemon on the other, on just the non-Fairy type on the other side of the field. But yes, unfortunately, the Rage Powder neutralizing the secondary effect there.
Yeah, and just look at that Dondozo. I mean, it's been on the field from the very first turn, and now with a combination of leftovers and grassy terrain, which now finally ends, it was able to recover so much health over the course of this battle. And now, though, with that Woodhammer, nice play by Joan. It didn't do all the damage to the Dragapult, but it certainly put it in range of that Ice Shard over on the Baxcalibur.
Yeah, Ice Shard, a priority move, is going before most others. And Dragapult, of course, takes super effective damage from that, being a part Dragon type here.
Yeah, and you don't really have any good switch-ins. I mean, the Rillaboom that is still waiting in the back for Jonathan is also weak to Ice-type attacks. I mean, you could try and go for it, but instead it actually will be Joan switching out their Rillaboom.
Yeah, time for the reveal of the final Pokemon for Joan, and it is their own Sneasler here, all shiny and new on the field, ready to go with a full HP bar and a Focus Sash intact. But that's going to be the Ice Shard, easily enough to take care of the Dragapult. Jonathan down to just the final two Pokemon now.
Yeah, big KO there by Joan. Really, that Dragapult was so scary, but now how to deal with that Baxcalibur, and it is not time yet, says Jonathan, to click that panic button. He wants to go for a Wave Crash and deal with the Baxcalibur, let's say the old-fashioned traditional way.
Yeah.
But maybe that could have been an opportunity to just try and launch one of those fissures. But yeah, now down to the last two Pokemon. And staring down a Sneasler and a Baxcalibur, both Pokemon on Joan, we have to assume both of those will be faster. So, yeah, maybe Woodhammer can get rid of that Baxcalibur, but then you still have to fight through Sneasler and the Rillaboom.
Yeah, you certainly do, and Fissure is only a move that's 30% accurate, so you really press it when your back's against the wall. You might get lucky and it connect, but you have to press it a few times to do your best to make sure one of them connects there. Just a double protect over on Joan's side of the field.
Yep.
Tries a little bit of recovery there onto the Excalibur perhaps, and just to scout out what Jonathan's going to be locking into here. Joan has this flexibility to be able to play around because just 3 Pokemon remaining versus Jonathan's 2, and that was the Yawn directed into the Excalibur here. Of course, Joan still has the luxury of being able to switch out those Pokemon to reset that drowsiness still.
Yeah, I think on Joan's side, there's not really a big reason to try and take any risks here. As long as he's able to get rid of either of Jonathan's Pokemon, I think he would be able to win in a potential 2v1 endgame. So yeah, Rillaboom definitely in range of a Dire Claw or an Icicle Spear. I think the play for Joan would probably be to just go for, yeah, Dire Claw, get rid of that Rillaboom, and then you have Excalibur that can deal with the Dondozo somehow.
Well, Grassy Glide is going to be really good damage into the Excalibur here. Dire Claw, Dondozo now matches up really nicely into the Sneasler. There's no secondary status condition here, being a poison type, resisting its moves. Icicle Spear, though, that of course is going to be enough to deal with the Rillaboom. Super effective into Grass. That Ice type has such useful offensive coverage. So now it's just the big fish in an increasingly small pond, but a Wave Crash able to collide into that Excalibur, clearing it up.
Yeah, interesting move choice here from Joan, which indicates to me that he's very confident that Excalibur would be faster than the Rillaboom over on his opponent's side. Dondozo finally gets the knockout on that Excalibur, but now the question is, well, in a 2v1, well, Dondozo is used to these 2v1s, but usually it would have all the boosts from Tatsugiri's commander ability. This is not the case, so yeah, we have high horsepower, I think, over on Joan's side. So that will be one way of dealing a ton of damage, but, well, the battle is not over.
It's not over, and yeah, the grassy terrain expiring, it's not been reset by Joan's Rillaboom here. Dondozo is able to get more recovery from the leftovers
but
and the grassy terrain.
Maybe that's
but coaching could be coming out right now just to ensure some more damage, and that's exactly what's going for. Rillaboom hitting the gym, getting a boost to its attack and defenses here. That high horsepower is not 100% accurate, but 95% still pretty good.
Okay, well, yeah, I think that's the route to victory. You have to launch. Either you could try and go for a Yawn first and then protect on the next turn on that Rillaboom, or you could just go for a Fissure right away. I think maybe a Yawn into the Rillaboom, hope that this high horsepower misses, and then you have a couple of chances to go for some Fissures. But yeah, there's also always Dire Claw involved, and high horsepower does hit.
No status condition there from the Dire Claw, but takes the high horsepower really quite well. A protect coming out from Jonathan's side is pretty telegraphed in this situation, so the Rillaboom can't get another one of those high horsepowers off, and you don't risk another pesky status condition from Sneasler.
Yeah, actually, of course, we have Unaware on that Dondozo as well.
Yeah.
So all those great coaching boosts, while it looked nice, it doesn't actually do that much. So now, once again, Dondozo will protect, and I think that, yeah, maybe there is a way back into this game, because while Rillaboom will fall asleep, and with a couple of chances to go for that Fissure, I mean, as long as the grassy terrain is still up and leftovers are still on that Dondozo, it will just keep on recovering health.
Yeah, it certainly would. It's a move that we've seen on so many team sheets so far this weekend. Have we seen it clicked? I don't believe we have, but this could be the match where we finally do. Is Jonathan going to get lucky with these Fissure Connects? It's an increasing reality for Joan right now, in just going to hold their breath and hope that the Fissure isn't going to do what it does best. But it would take that Rillaboom all the way from now near or exactly full HP, all the way down to 0. It's time to click the big red button.
Well, but maybe Sneasler has to say something about that.
Oh, no, okay, we don't have a condition. Rillaboom's going to sleep. Here we go, trainers. Is it going to be a big one-hit knockout from Fissure? No, it's not. Only 30% accurate, but there could well be one on a future turn.
Well, Rillaboom will need to wake up, and yeah, that Dondozo just keeps on recovering health. And I mean, it is only 30%, but if you're clicking it a couple of turns in a row, eventually it's gonna hit.
Certainly is, but eventually you could also get a sleep or paralysis from this Dark Claw.
Oh!
It's gonna be the sleep onto Jonathan's Dondozo. It was only a matter of time before that happened.
Yeah, John taking a big breath there, knowing that, okay, this will not automatically win the game, but this will make winning much easier, because now this gives Rillaboom a couple of more turns to finally wake up, and then, well, we've seen how little damage the Sneasler is able to do, but Rillaboom, of course, once it wakes up with that super effective high horsepower, should be able to whittle it down.
It should be able to, but we saw it took not too much damage, but the close combat is doing a lot more here. Now the Diaclaw has that status condition online. The close combat is going to be threatening it more. Rillaboom going to be waking up and smelling the coffee. Yep. Dondozo not quite doing the same, but it is hanging on 9 HP. Is it going to wake up here, get off a protect maybe, but then you're threatened down by too much offense. So Jonathan's still playing really well with the back against the wall.
Yeah, absolutely. John also there identifying that, okay, going for a Diaclaw until a status condition rolls his way is the play to go for. Of course, close combat doing a little bit more damage, as we just saw, to that Dondozo, but yeah, you want to try and keep going for those Diaclaws until you maybe get either the paralysis or the sleep, and both of them, of course, really helpful in this particular situation. So now that he got the chance, well, Dondozo wakes up. I mean...
It does seem a little too late here, and I think, you know, as a Terra Poison type, it cannot be poisoned by that move, but it could still be paralyzed. And in that situation, probably the lesser of two evils is being paralyzed as opposed to put to sleep there. You could still connect every single one of your moves. You have your speed reduced, but Dondozo isn't the speediest Pokemon anyway. At least Jonathan got that early wake up, but again, doesn't really have the mileage, the leeway to play with such a low health bar.
Yeah, I think maybe just the close combat might be enough at this point for the knockout.
Is it going to be? Yes, it certainly is. So Dondozo goes down, and now time for Jonathan to think about the game plan heading into game 2. I think, you know, even when your back's against the wall, Jonathan did a really good job of playing into that, playing to their outs, but probably...
Dragapult, when it came in, when the Baxcalibur was off the field, I think, yeah, it was threatening a lot of damage. And it seems like, yeah, both of them are content with how it went. Of course, Jonathan would have liked the result to be different, but yeah, once again, he trusts his Dondozo and Sneasler.
Yeah, certainly does. Is everything on the line right now for Jonathan? Has to win this game in order to stay in our Lille Regional Championships. Masters top 16. The intensity is really cranked up here. The tournament just gets more and more difficult.
It absolutely does. And now the question is, will Sneasler once again try to go for that fake out, or is that Terra Ghost just so telegraphed over on Joan's Baxcalibur? I think if I were Jonathan, I would probably not go for that fake out. I mean, you could try and go for a protect instead, just to scout out what is happening, see if there is any terrestrialization over on Joan's side. And because of how well this Baxcalibur and Volcarona are set up against Sneasler, I think this is something that Joan maybe does, like, almost every game, just going for the Terra Ghost, just because it's so safe.
Practice the game plan, practice the lines, and it will be Baxcalibur once more being the Terra option of choice. Sneasler just scouting out, keeping himself safe this turn. Dondozo isn't going to follow suit. Heat Wave connecting into the Protect Shield from Sneasler, and it will be landing into Dondozo too. Is there going to be a burn here, mitigating the damage output? No, fortunately not. Scale Shot also targeting down into the Sneasler. It's a really good call there from Jonathan. And now Dondozo able to get off this Yawn into the Baxcalibur. So once more, we have this revolving cycle of, is it bedtime or is it morning?
Okay, and this opens up a very dicey situation for Jonathan, because while you have the Yawn on the Baxcalibur, but I think what you would want to do with that Sneasler is actually click Diaclaw into that slot. But then if the Baxcalibur does not switch, then you run into the risk, of course, of applying any status conditions other than sleep. Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, Jonathan might have to do it. I mean, he has to go for something this game, and I think, yeah, we see that, but Baxcalibur switches out, so nice call there on Jonathan's end.
Yeah, Joan is going to be keeping the Baxcalibur nice and awake. Going to be Sneasler coming in instead over on Joan's side of the field. Poison types are once again immune to poison, but not to the other status conditions. Are we going to see one of them right now? No, going to be dodging that, but the Heat Wave is also going to be dodging into the Dondozo. Sneasler takes that from Jonathan. No burn to speak of. Wave Crash now, super effective into the Volcarona. Once more, brings it down very low, but not quite for the knockout, but that will be the burn onto Jonathan's Dondozo.
Yeah, we've talked about paralysis, we've talked about sleep, and we've talked about poison coming off of that Diaclaw potentially on the Dondozo, but now this is really the best status condition you could have hoped for, because not only will it mean that Dondozo's attack is cut in half, it also means that, of course, all the recovery from leftovers, that's just cancelled out. So with how we saw the first game when Dondozo just recovering turn after turn after turn, this will not happen this game. So yeah, Jonathan definitely has to switch up the game plan right away.
If there's one small piece of solace here, is that the Wave Crash recoil is not going to be... It is is going to be less because you're dealing less damage to the opposing side of the field. But yeah, absolutely. Whereas the Dondozo isn't so much on a timer, it's not gaining time, so to speak. It's not gaining that HP back that it was doing in the previous game. Sneasler going to go running back to its trainer, back climbing up the mountain. Dragapult going to be swooping down onto the field now.
Depending on what Joan went for, this might be a little bit risky because, of course, you don't want to take a Dire Claw into that Dragapult either. Volcarona just going for that Rage Bar. Is that Dire Claw? Let's see.
Do we have a status hit condition here? No, but we could have an impending one onto this Volcarona. Gonna be Drowsy here. Would have to reset that by switching out. Not going for the knockout there onto the Volcarona.
Yeah, I think this means that now for Joan, it's really safe to just go for another Rage Powder. Like, at this point, you kind of want to get rid of the Volcarona. Just because, well, it's such low HP, it might fall asleep this turn, and then maybe this actually opens up an opportunity for Jonathan to make a little bit of a call here. But I don't really know how you could even capitalize on that. I mean, it is nice to get rid of that Volcarona right away because, yeah, we do see that is that Rillaboom waiting in the back for Jonathan, and Volcarona was really a Pokemon that gave it so much trouble in that first game. So I think it's, despite the burn, it's still a nice start here for Jonathan to this game too.
Right, sure, and yeah, I mean, the burn happened at early doors, but there are still plenty of options available. Still have a lot of the game left to go.
Okay.
Rage Powder coming out from Volcarona. Is this going to be our first game that goes to 3 games so far in our Lille Regional Championships? U-turn just going to be enough to pick up the knockout. Is there going to be a burn thanks to Flame Body from the Volcarona here? Looks like this Dragapult is going to be safe from that. Sigh of relief for Jonathan there, and it's going to be one of the Pokemon from the back coming back in. Sneasler has the Focus Sash already broken, so it could go down in just the 1 hit as opposed to previously just the 2. Is there going to be yet another status condition from this Dire Claw into Sneasler? No, fortunately not. This is the dice you roll every time.
Yeah, very scary turn there for Jonathan, but both times the Pokemon avoid the status condition. Yeah, I think the U-turn maybe was a little bit of a read there. Maybe that the Volcarona might switch into Rillaboom or something like that. But yeah, Joan, I think, correctly identified that it's fine to give out that Pokemon in this spot. But then, yeah, U-turn being a contact move, that could have applied the burn condition to the Dragapult on Jonathan's side. But yeah, that did not happen. And now, once again, we have that Excalibur come out on the field against Dondozo and Sneasler, and both of them, well, are significantly weakened now on Jonathan's side, so Scale Shot will start to really put this Dondozo very low, and of course also could easily knock out that Sneasler.
Poison, burn, sleep, paralysis. The battlefield couldn't really be more hazardous right now. At least there's going to be some passive recovery at the end of every turn, thanks to the grassy terrain. Excalibur now just wants to scout out. If there was a Yawn targeted into that, it wouldn't be doing anything. But Dire Claw, super effective into the Rillaboom, and it's going to get that paralysis as well. So that could mean that this Rillaboom is unable to move on successive turns. Yawn was indeed targeted into the Excalibur here. And yeah, both these trainers currently sort of meeting toe for toe.
Yeah, big Dire Claw hit here into that Rillaboom that is switching in. I think that would have been an opportunity for Joan's Excalibur to just go on the offensive, maybe with a Scale Shot into that Dondozo or like an Icicle Spear, knock out that Sneasler. Instead, he wanted to play it a little bit safer, maybe a little bit too safe, because you cannot give Jonathan that many openings, and Jonathan has shown now time and time that he is willing to grab the chances that are being handed and make those offensive predictions with those Dire Claws, for example. So yeah, now that the grassy terrain, of course, is on the field again, Dondozo will recover a little bit, and once again, Jonathan has to think about, okay, is it time to go for that Yawn, or should I just start a go with Fissures? I think you still feel pretty good just going for a Yawn into that Excalibur, but then are you fine just giving up that Sneasler? Because it could very well go down to, yeah, maybe an Ice Shard right away.
Yeah, Ice Shard is going to be enough just to mitigate the threat from that Sneasler. Jonathan head in hands there, feeling like they made the wrong call, but only time will tell. Dondozo is able to make Excalibur drowsy once again.
And will this Rillaboom get off a whatever? No, it does not. It is paralyzed. That would have been a big opportunity for a ton of damage on that Dondozo once more. And now, again, this window of opportunity is closed, kind of, because, well, the Excalibur probably wants to switch out next turn. Well, now Jonathan knows that there is a Sneasler waiting in the back. So if you can find a Pokemon to really punish that switch, and Dragapult could do that, you could just go for Dragon Darts, potentially, if you feel that it would knock out that Rillaboom. And I think with the Terra Dragon, it almost definitely does.
Yeah, Terra Dragon, really offensive choice on that Dragon Ball, especially holding the choice band here. The recovery on the Dondozo, thanks to the grassy terrain, now net positive, even though the burn is taking away a little bit of HP. Leftovers plus grassy terrain, ultimately healing it back up more than before.
Yeah, it's tough to assess, really, because if you switch in Dragon Bolt, then this opens a play for Joan, which would be to Ice Shard and Grassy Glide, and if that is enough to knock it out, then that could be disastrous for Jonathan. So instead, I think he thinks that, well, I can also bring in Rillaboom, maybe knock out the Sneasler on the switch-in with a combination of, let's say, Wave Crash and High Horsepower, potentially. That would be a play into the Excalibur, or I could also try and go for the offense on the Rillaboom, maybe double up on that slot with Wave Crash and Woodhammer. Could also get the knockout there.
Yeah, probably the Rillaboom is so low that even though those attacks will be not very effective, but you can see the time that Jonathan is taking over Lockie in the moves, knowing just what is at stake here and when to spend that Terra option, something that Jonathan is still able to do, but something Joan has already spent. The time is ticking down, trainers. Also, potentially for one of these trainers in our Lille Regional Championships, Excalibur will be getting out of there in favor of Sneasler rushing back in.
Yeah, it was a tough decision for Jonathan because it looked like all the moves that he had available, they would all be good. Jonathan decides that he doesn't want to risk his opponent just going for an Icicle Spear with that Excalibur, even though it would fall asleep at the end of the turn. Well, if you expect to be knocked out, it doesn't really matter if you would fall asleep, right? So instead, Jonathan plays it a little bit slow, goes for the Protector Dondozo, and will terrestrialize the Rillaboom to fire and attack into what is now the Sneasler with a big Wood Hammer.
Big Wood Hammer is resisted, but it is going to be enough for the knockout, boosted by the grassy terrain as it is. So Joan now down to the final 2 Pokemon. Jonathan has 3 in the back. And Rillaboom, of course, with this Terra Fire now, switching up its defenses and weaknesses. The Wood Hammer would have loved to have connected with the Dondozo there, but no, it's not going to give Joan's Rillaboom that satisfaction.
Yeah, and step by step by step, Jonathan has put himself in a position where now he is the one with the Pokemon advantage. Despite this burn on the Dondozo, it didn't really come into effect too much so far. It's still almost at full HP,
yeah.
Of course, now with the double recovery, kind of outlasting that burn damage. And now that Joan is down to their last final 2 Pokemon, the only question that remains is how to deal with that Excalibur. I mean, you still have that Dragapult in the back, but yeah, let's not forget that there is the option for Ice Shard, and there's also the option for this Excalibur to boost its speed with that Scale Shot. So it's a tricky endgame for sure, but I think Jonathan might have the edge here.
Might do. It's going to be fine margins, as is ever the case, as we reach the final stages of a tournament like this.
Oh, Dondozo just protected.
He certainly did, yeah.
Yeah, he's trying to go for another one. I'm not sure if that is necessary, actually. Maybe fearing a Grassy Glide and Scale Shot?
Okay, no, so the Dondozo isn't going to get that double protect off. It's a move that gets less likely to work the more that you click it in succession. Icicle Spear going to be hitting at least 4 times. There's not very much damage, but every little bit of chip could count here. And if the Rillaboom is targeted down the Dondozo, then it's looking really, really threatened. And all of a sudden, Jonathan is looking like the back is against the wall once more. Gets for the 5 hits there. Wood Hammer boosted into the Excalibur, bringing it down low, but not quite enough to take the KO. And there is a full paralysis on Joan's Rillaboom there. So a real get-out clause for Jonathan.
Yeah, I think Jonathan gets bailed here just a little bit. I think that Dondozo was confirmed to be faster than that Rillaboom on the previous turn due to the paralysis on Rillaboom. So I think Jonathan was probably scared of maybe a Grassy Glide and Scale Shot combination into that Dondozo and tried to play the odds here, but yeah, that did not happen. Instead, I think it might have been like a maybe Joan didn't want to lower its defense on the Excalibur, so instead decided to go for Icicle Spear and Wood Hammer. Yeah, tough calls still for Jonathan, but going for Yawn is not that... It's not that easy to go for a Yawn lock, because if Dondozo goes down the same turn, then Dragapult is forced on the field, and Dragapult cannot protect, also Rillaboom cannot protect, so you might lose the game maybe before the Yawn comes into effect. So yeah, it's still difficult to navigate, but maybe with Grassy Glide and some more chip damage, you can get rid of that Excalibur.
You also have the chance that the Rillaboom will continue to be paralyzed, so that's something that's really playing into Jonathan's favor here. Scale Shot just into the Dragapult. A big call there. That's going to be enough to remove Dragapult from the equation entirely, and now both trainers down to just 2 Pokemon.
Oof, yeah, they just keep surprising us here with the moves and also each other, I guess. Now that the defense is dropped, I mean, Dondozo doesn't really care about all the boosts. And it goes for Fisher, but it does not connect again.
Goes for the Fisher, only 30% chance to hit here. Now a big wood hammer into the Dondozo from Jonathan, from Joan's side of the field. That's going to be Dondozo down, and all of a sudden, it's just Jonathan with this lone Terra Fire Rillaboom. The recall damage there is nice. Certainly, the health bar is looking low on Joan's side of the field. But the Grassy Terrain is slowly but surely expiring as well.
Yeah.
There it is, it's gone. So Grassy Glide, no longer a priority move.
Yeah, so that's why Jonathan swapped out the Rillaboom, so he could reset Grassy Glide this turn. It's still anyone's game, I think. Well, Grassy Glide might be enough to get the knock-on the Excalibur right now with that defense drop, but one more turn of Grassy Terrain recovery could flip that Calc up its head. It's Scale Shot, but it doesn't connect.
Scale Shot is going to miss onto the Rillaboom. Oh, all of these equations are going out the window right now, as the Rillaboom on Joan's side is going to be felled by a Woodhammer, giving it a taste of its own medicine. A huge dodge there from Scale Shot, and it looks like, well, now this Excalibur could well be out of a Grassy Glide range, but with this Rillaboom now a fire type, of course, Icicle Spear is now dealing not very effective damage.
Oh, I think you want a Woodhammer here, because I don't think Scale Shot will get it. And I don't think Scale Shot will knock out the Rillaboom, and I also don't think Grassy Glide will knock out the Excalibur. But if you're of course worried that Scale Shot might get a critical hit or not, okay, that's just to protect this turn. I think now it's definitely out of range.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So maybe now you have to go for that Woodhammer, but also not only does the Excalibur recover health, also the Rillaboom does recover health. So now I think it's also pretty safe to say that it's not in Scale Shot range anymore. But you know, that could also be, I mean, you get 4 to 5 chances to land a critical hit.
How many is it going to be? Are we going to see any critical hits coming out? Here's one.
Oh, that did quite a lot.
Here's 2. Here's 3.
Oh, 5 would.
Here's 4. Are we going to have a 5th? Is it going to be Rillaboom?
Oh,
no, it's going to be 4. It's going to be the Woodhammer now. And with the defense drop onto the Excalibur, the speed boost doesn't matter now. Big Woodhammer is going to fell the Excalibur. The recall damage enough to take care of the Rillaboom. But Jonathan took that KO before. And finally, Marcus, for the first time this weekend, we are going to a Game 3.
Yeah, both the last remaining Pokemons for both of our trainers now fainting at the end of this turn. Both of their beautiful terrestrializations just crash as they go back to their trainers. And in the end, no one at Game 3, and really, I mean, we hyped it up at the beginning that this was going to be like probably a longer series than some of the ones that we've seen so far. And oh, finally for Game 3, both players are making some adaptations.
Yeah, Dondozo once more on the field for Jonathan, but it will be Jonathan's own Volcarona now. First time we've seen that come to the fray. Rillaboom and Excalibur out on the field for Joan.
Yeah, so Volcarona over on Jonathan's side does not carry that Rage Powder, which Joan has used to great effect in both games 1 and 2. But now it's the Rillaboom coming out. So Rillaboom, of course, not a Pokemon that does so well into Sneasler, I would say. Also doesn't do so well into Volcarona, but definitely forces that Dondozo to do something, unless it wants to be hit with like a Woodhammer and Scale Shot combination.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Jonathan, for now, is just going to keep their Pokemon safe. Scale Shot was targeting down into the Volcarona here. So Jonathan now has ample opportunity to glean at what the opponent was considering, and Woodhammer directed into the Dondozo. So Joan decided to split the damage.
Yeah, Jonathan just wants to take it slow, wants to see if once again the Excalibur might want to go for that Terrestrialization right away, but now that there is no Sneasler over on Jonathan's side, no real reason to do that right away. And yeah, maybe Jonathan trying to get rid of that, or trying to put pressure on that Rillaboom right away. Now has this turn to go for a big Heat Wave, but you know, one of the downsides of Heat Wave in this situation would be that, of course, you're also activating the Thermal Exchange on Excalibur, an ability we haven't seen in a while, but will boost.
Oh, the burn onto the Rillaboom, so it's going to mitigate its physical damage output there. Yes, as you were saying, Marcus, the Thermal Exchange there, boosting the physical attack of the Pokemon. Scale Shot now into the Volcarona. There's no berry to speak of. 4 is easily going to be enough. Thanks to that loaded dice, we know that Scale Shot is hitting at least 4 times. Now the speed boosts, but the defense drops.
Yeah, Heat Wave taketh away, getting that burn on that Rillaboom, and also boosting the Excalibur. So one of them got stronger, one of them got significantly weaker. That Woodhammer, even without the burn, though, against this Terra Poison on the Dondozo, not dealing a ton of damage at all. And now this Dondozo is sitting really comfortably on the field.
Yeah, very comfortably indeed. The first time we've seen a heat wave burn in this 3-game thriller, trainers. But that's certainly a secondary effect. And the more games we have, the more times that button is clicked, the more likely it is to connect at some point. And now, with the grassy terrain and the leftovers, this Dondozo is sitting very pretty indeed, back at full HP.
Yeah, I think this is a brilliant setup here for Jonathan. Having that Dondozo just sit on the field and spam Yawn. Now that you have the Rillaboom, that slot is not going to do anything to the Dondozo. And the Excalibur, well, it has a couple of boosts now to its speed, to its attack, but it really wants to switch out due to that Yawn. So yeah, you could just maybe go ahead and keep using Yawn to that slot if you're Jonathan, but at the same time, you also have to watch out because both Pokemon that Jonathan has in the back are weak to Ice types. And if Joan wants to, he could just decide to go for, okay, my Excalibur, I'm going to go for Terra Ghost here, and I'm going to go for Icicle Spear into the Rillaboom because there's nothing you can do about it. Well, of course, Joan doesn't know that there is that Dragapult waiting in the back, and now it's a question of, okay, do you want to make a gamble? Do you want to take a gamble this early in the game and potentially risk the entire game? And then, well, surprise, it's not the Dragapult in the back, but maybe a little bit like another Pokemon that is a little bit more bulky, like that Electabuzz. But yeah, I think maybe there's a chance here for Joan to just go for this Terra Ghost on the Excalibur and get a knockout on that Rillaboom or the Dragapult as they switch in.
It looks from Joan's expression that they called it, and it's just going to be a big Icicle Spear into the Dragapult. Jonathan getting no mileage at all out of that zooming Pokemon. All of a sudden, Jonathan down to just 2 Pokemon, and the tables once again even from that burn onto the Rillaboom in turn 1.
Yeah, and this was such a big risk because there was not even that Terra Ghost, so Jonathan could have just gone for a fake out into that Excalibur to stop it from moving. That would have put it to sleep at the end of the turn, guaranteed. But a big risk by Joan, but I mean, he went undefeated in the Swiss rounds up until the very last round, so he knows when to take risk, and he was ready to take one here in this Game 3.
Yeah, certainly was. Wow, so there you go. You have to make these calls. They might not be the right ones, but it could be the difference maker. Excalibur, at least a little bit of solace for Jonathan now, is going to be taking a snooze here. Be interesting to see if Jonathan's Pokemon now have enough gas in the tank to make it through all 4 of Joan's.
Yeah, really tough spot here. I mean, Jonathan down to the last 2 Pokemon, and neither the Rillaboom nor that Dondozo are really known for packing a lot of damage. But the 2 Pokemon that Joan has on the field, they're not going to do a lot of damage either. Yeah, that Woodhammer, well, it is nice for some chip, but Rillaboom will recover. And yeah, if you can get rid of this Excalibur this turn, then Joan still has this burned Rillaboom just sitting on the field, not really doing anything. But you also might want to consider at this point, you're just like, let it stay on the field until it faints, because you don't want to reset the grassy terrain later on in the battle.
Exactly, yeah. That would give Jonathan potentially an advantage later on in order to get those priority grassy glides off, but also for this recovery onto the Dondozo that's stacking up and up. I mean, once again, it's back to full HP. The grassy terrain going to mitigate the burn damage, so the Rillaboom going to stay steady at the same level of HP turn after turn as long as the grassy terrain's on the field.
Yeah, but Jonathan has proven in the first game that he is willing to play a Dondozo endgame, and he will make it as difficult as possible for his opponent to take the win here. And I think, well, now that Dondozo, we're kind of approaching the endgame of this battle now, and the Dondozo is still sitting there at full health.
Yeah.
It has Terrestrialize to Poison, which is a good type into all of Joan's remaining option. And especially this burn on the Rillaboom means that one big source of damage that Joan used in the first game will not be available anymore, because that Rillaboom is just so weak now.
Yeah, it certainly is. Well, Sneasler doesn't like its odds right now. Grassy Glide was targeting down into that slot, so a good call here by Joan. As the Rillaboom over on Joan's side can just keep whittling away, doing what it can. Woodhammer mitigated once more by that burn, and of course, resisted by the Rillaboom. It can deal with those quite comfortably, being a grass type. Yawn trying to target down that slot as well onto the Sneasler. Of course, with the Rillaboom already burned over on Joan's side of the field, you cannot give 2 status conditions, so safer to target into the other slot.
A magnificent protect there coming out of that Sneasler over on Joan's side, knowing that, well, Rillaboom won't do that much, but it still does a little bit, right? And it allows you to wait out those grassy terrain turns a little bit more, and now Rillaboom does not have any option to go for a priority grassy glide anymore, and Joan could just go for that Dire Claw to potentially knock out Rillaboom over on Jonathan's side, and then it is really that Dondozo against the world scenario we've been talking about.
Oh my goodness, that's going to be the Dire Claw, so enough to take care of the Rillaboom here. Maybe some solace that we don't have to worry about any status conditions, but you could still get one onto this Dondozo. High horsepower now, super effective from the burned Rillaboom, but you can see just how little damage it's doing. There's no more grassy terrain right now, so it's just the leftovers recovery that can come out into the Dondozo. Now Sneasler drowsy. Are we going to have another revolving door? Jonathan once more putting everything into this big blue whale.
Yeah, is this going to be the Dondozo comeback here in the top 16? Rillaboom taking a couple more turns of burn, and there is no reason for Jonathan to knock that Pokemon out, because he wants to play as if this was a 1v1. He just wants to target down the slot where right now the Sneasler is. Fire Claw.
Okay, we're
not
safe.
Getting any status condition, but yeah, Sneasler at the end of this turn will fall asleep.
Yeah, it certainly will. It has to take a big wave craft, but of course, holding Focus Sash anyway, it would be hanging on with 1 HP, as it is Sneasler down just into the orange of its health. Now you can go for a Protect with Jonathan's Dondozo, heal up a little bit more with those leftovers, ensuring that the Sneasler will go to sleep, unless John switches it out.
Yeah, Sneasler is asleep now, so you could even think about going for Protect anyway, just for a little bit of extra recovery. And I think Jonathan is thinking about that, because even though it gives the Sneasler a chance to wake up next turn, it also means that you get a little bit more recovery, and it also might set up this Rillaboom to go down on the perfect turn with the burn, because eventually, once you have taken a knockout, then there is no need anymore for Jonathan to have this Rillaboom be stuck in play, and then he would be happy for it to be knocked out. So I like this Protect, even though it is a little bit risky, because if Sneasler wakes up this turn, and now there is a chance that it wakes up, and if Sneasler wakes up and gets a big Dire Claw in, then that could be disastrous for Jonathan.
Yeah, it really could. There could be a status condition coming out
But
once more. No, it's going to be staying asleep here. Even though Dondozo, Terra Poison, you cannot poison it. It could still be paralyzed or put to sleep. And of course, there's the ever-present question of a critical hit, which Rillaboom was able to connect with there. Dondozo now a little bit lower than it was, and the Wavecraft Recoil going to do exactly the same there. So Joan now down to the final 2 Pokemon. Does this Dondozo have what it takes?
Yeah, and what is that final Pokemon over on Joan's side? So far, we have not seen it. I mean, it could be that Volcarona to maybe go for some Heat Waves. It could be that Electabuzz even with Thunderbolt. Or it could be that Dragapult. I think, yeah, all of them might have just enough damage to knock it out. And it is that Volcarona. And we have seen in previous games how Wave Crash was not able to get the KO on this Pokemon. And if Joan was able to get off a couple of Heat Waves, this might be enough, but of course there's also still Terrestrialization available, and I think, against a Terra Fairy Volcarona, I think either way, I think the goal to knock out this Pokemon would be through Fissure.
Yeah, it certainly would. That would be an absolute thrilling way to end this game, but Terra Fairy is going to be making water-type moves. Neutral damage now as opposed to super effective. Now Dondozo does get that chance to recover a little bit, but then you are giving the Volcarona, well, you could be giving it a chance to go for a Quiver Dance, but of course with the Dondozo, it is unaware. So we'll be ignoring those boosts, so that recovery all important now.
Yeah, so this is coming down to the wire. I think the road to victory for Jonathan would be you yawn into the Volcarona this turn, then you hopefully can make it through the turn somehow next turn. But instead it's going to be double Protect. Jonathan thinks that the Dondozo would not be able to take this combination of Heat Wave and High Horsepower, and I think he is correct in his assessment. Both hits land. Dondozo going down, and Joan wins this game.
Joan Garcia, your winner of top 16.
Joan Garcia moving on to the top 8.